Good evening, everyone. I will call to order the City of Laguna Beach Planning Commission meeting of June 4th, 2025. Before we do roll call, I'm noting that Commissioner Kellenberg will be participating remotely tonight. So if you hear a disembodied voice, that would be Commissioner Kellenberg. The location where he's at has been noted in our agenda. Commissioner Kellenberg, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Do you have any members of the public with you tonight?
I've been looking for them, but I have not seen any so far.
Okay. If any members of the public end up showing up at your location, can you please let us know?
Will do. Thank you.
All right. May I have roll call, please?
Commissioner Goldman? Commissioner Whiten?
Here.
Commissioner Dubin?
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg?
Here.
And Chair Sadler.
Here. Before we begin with our regular order, there's a portion of our meeting for public communications. That's a period of time where any members of the public can come up to the podium and address the Planning Commission on any items that are under our general jurisdiction and purview, but not on tonight's agenda. So is there anybody who would like to make public communications for items not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll close public communications. We have no items on the consent calendar tonight, so we'll be moving on to our regular public hearings. We'll begin with item 5.1, which the Public Works Department will be presenting to us. And it's about the fiscal year 2025-2026 capital improvement projects and the determination of general plan consistency. Pierre, will you be presenting this tonight? All right, thank you. Take your time.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Pierre Sawaya, Capital Program Manager here in Public Works, and here to present on the fiscal year 25-26 capital improvement plan and consistency with the general plan. Our capital improvement program is a long-range planning tool here used at the city to plan projects, infrastructure projects in town. In the past, we had utilized a 10-year planning program. We've shifted a little bit for this fiscal year to a 7-year planning program just to be a little bit more focused on what we do in the near term and project projects that we feel can be completed in that time frame. The major type of projects that are covered by categories are as shown: beach access, drainage, facility improvements, parking facilities, parking improvements, pedestrian improvements, utility undergrounding, and lastly, wastewater improvements. I'm going to run through some of the key projects for the fiscal year 25-26. This is not inclusive of all of them, but they are some of the key ones that we would like to highlight tonight. So beginning projects that would begin construction in this coming fiscal year would be the Forest Promenade. We're all well aware of that, and that would be the permanent conversion of Forest Avenue into a pedestrian promenade. We also have the EOC relocation. So our emergency center is currently located at City Hall. We have a project to relocate that to the Community and Recreation Center and have a designated space there as an EOC center for the city. The Hagen Place stairs and Suzy Q trellis replacements. Those are stair and trellis replacement projects just due to kind of old age and deterioration of those facilities. Police Department facility improvements. Those include enhancements and improvements to our police department at City Hall. It includes improvements such as locker room updates, doors, new things, just to make the space more functional and accessible for police staff. We also have the Aliso Beach parking lot. That project would be a rehabilitation of the parking lot. That would include, parking enhancements, striping, signage, and those sort of things. On the wastewater side, we have our North Coast Interceptor Reach 5 replacement. That's a critical piece of sewer infrastructure that would replace an existing pipeline with 2 new pipelines, again, to harden and make our sewer system more resilient moving forward. And lastly, our Victoria 2 and Bluebird lift station replacements and rehabilitations. These are lift stations that are quite old and are in need of improvements due to age and deterioration. On this slide are the key projects for the design side, moving into fiscal year 25-26. So we would begin designs on the enclosed lifeguard tower installations. This would replace lifeguard chairs out on our beaches with fully enclosed lifeguard towers for the marine safety staff. We usually do a beach access improvement every year. So we have our Fisherman's Cove beach access improvements to replace those beach stairs, and also with landscaping, handrail improvements, and a new lifeguard tower as well. Our Coast Highway landscape upgrades, as part of Caltrans work out on Coast Highway, they've already installed some medians out there. So that this project would come our way to complete the irrigation and the landscaping of those medians. We also have downtown action plan improvements. These would be any kind of improvements or recommendations stemming from the downtown action plan, which could include streetscape, landscaping, those sort of things. Focused on Ocean Avenue and Beach Street, could be elsewhere in downtown as well. And lastly, our fire station communication system upgrades. Our fire stations do have some kind of older, outdated communication systems. So this would be an enhancements, bringing them up to speed as far as getting a state-of-the-art communication upgrades. So we come here tonight to demonstrate the consistency with the general plan. That's a requirement of the government code on an annual basis. And as part of our analysis, and as shown in the matrix as attached to the staff report, it highlights the general plan's elements and the goals that attribute the CIP projects to with the general plan. And that matrix kind of shows how each project is tied to a goal or an element. And staff findings on that do find that there are multiple goals per project. It's not just one goal. Sometimes they have multiple goals per project. Our CIP list does not have any inconsistent projects with the general plan. And the CIP plan does provide comprehensive public services and infrastructure to the community. And again, we find its overall consistency with the general plan of the city. There was one, I would like to point out, there's one sort of last minute revision to our resolution. We were made aware of a change of primary residence for Commissioner Whiten. So as shown on the screen, we did strike out language of the commissioner having to recuse herself for project number 7, which is the fire station communication system upgrades. So due to that change of primary residence, we struck that portion out, and that's no longer a requirement in the resolution itself. So I just want to make that very clear tonight. And lastly, that brings us to our recommendation, which is we recommend that Planning Commission adopt the resolution, finding that the proposed fiscal year 25-26 CIP plan is consistent with the city's general plan, and findings set exempt from CEQA, and forwarding these findings to the City Council. And that concludes the presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Pierre, for that presentation. Are there any commissioner questions of staff at this point? Commissioner Killenberg?
Yes, I have three questions. The first is, this is really to staff in general, and that is, it's my understanding our role tonight on this is not to necessarily question any of these improvements or in terms of capital improvements and construction and design, but limited only to finding whether they are consistent with the general plan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
My second question, then, it tends to be more for information only. The Hagen Place stairs, and are you completely rebuilding the stairs or just doing a refresh? And if you are completely rebuilding them, is there any plans to replace the public art project that's currently on those stairs?
It'd be a reconstruction of the stairs. It'd also be some lighting improvements associated with that project. I'd have to look into and get back to you on the public art. I'm not entirely clear on that part.
Is the Hagen Place stairs the 3rd Street stairs, or is that something else?
No, it's not the 3rd Street stairs. It's stairs.
Okay, then I withdraw my question. The
Okay.
second question is on the Aliso Beach parking lot. There's currently proposals for demolishing and reconfiguring the parking lot on the inland side of PCH. Does this project include, improving that portion of the parking lot?
Yes, it includes the westerly portion and also
Yeah. Yes, this is Tom Perez, city engineer. Yes, so this project would be addressing both the inland and the coastal lots. Where it stands today, there was a study session with the city council where we received direction on design. We've had since then one public meeting, so we're kind of tweaking that design. We would be bringing something back to city council to see that it's headed the right direction, and then we would move through to entitlements for the project.
You're talking about the restoration project.
Yes, for the parking lots. Yes.
But not the
Yes,
not the
correct.
previous restoration project that we heard about, the interpretive center and all that stuff.
No, the
Estuary.
I'm drawing the estuary. No, this is just the parking lots.
So can I jump in on that just for a second? I know we're not overseeing, budgets and all that stuff, but because the estuary project, if it ever goes forward, is dealing with the inland side as well, a little bit on the ocean side. Is there any communication between the city and the foundation or whoever is proposing the estuary project, because it seems like they're going to collide at some point?
Yeah, so we discussed that when we were looking at it. One thing I'll note is the inland side that would be most impacted by those estuary is more of a maintenance project, so pavement rehab. There's going to be some minor improvements that I think would increase a couple parking spaces, but that the major work would be on the coastal side, which is in dire need of improvements. So we've looked at that. We've considered also the timing for that estuary project if it were to go forward. So to sit and not do this work, I think it would get into a real bad state of disrepair. So we have made those considerations.
All right, thanks, Tom.
I have a follow-up on that
Sure.
same project. I know there was discussion in the Oceanside parking lot about different landscape alternatives. And the description of the project doesn't refer to landscape. Is landscape a part of that parking lot project?
Yeah, there will be On the inland side, it would be again minor, maybe some modifications to the irrigation, some modifications to the grass. We're not looking at like a complete overhaul. On the coastal side, the majority of the landscape, what has been discussed at this point would be if we're looking at a complete redesign of that lot, it would require the relocation of those large palm trees that are out there. So redoing those diamonds and the planting there. The input from the community at the council study session was to leave the grass areas in place. So that's kind of what is proposed today, that the grass near the playground area and along the walkway would essentially remain the same.
And so the palms would be relocated based on the new striping.
Yes.
And will there be additional palms planted? Do you know?
We have not looked at additional. There is one, I want to say it's a Cook Island pine tree that would be replaced with the palm tree.
I have a second question, has to do with the future projects, which is page 8 of the fifth attachment. Public sidewalks, I think there's 5 line items for public sidewalks. And there are no public sidewalks, I don't think, in the other fiscal year CIPs. Seems as though sidewalks are high priority here. What's going on with that? Why aren't any of those sidewalks a part of any of the 7-year plan?
Yeah, so right now we just recently went to council with a safety for all plan that did include sidewalks that we will be programming. So that plan just got adopted. We're also coming, hopefully in the next couple months, we'll be coming to council with the sidewalk master plan. So once we have that plan adopted, then we would be able to plug in the actual improvements. And so referring back to the future projects list, really what that was, because as Pierre mentioned, we went from 7 years to 10 years. There were a lot of projects that then, would seemingly disappear. So we reflected those as future projects. We've also, any things that come up but aren't programmed in that time, we want to recognize that those are things that may come in later years, but they're not programmed specifically. But as we go through with those master plans, we'll be able to reallocate those outer years and get some done.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions, Commissioner Kellenberg?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll open it up for public comment. If any members of the public wish to speak on this item. Seeing none, close public comment. Anything additionally that either of you two would like to add? Okay, we'll go to Commissioner comments and discussion and action. Before we do that, however, I wanted to point out that there's a couple of potential conflicts of interest where a couple of the commissioners need to recuse themselves on a couple of items. So I believe the suggestion was to start with those items first as we go through our discussion.
Correct. Yeah, Chair, I'd say it's more than a suggestion. That is what the FPPC requires, such that they need to be handled first. And so this is my advice, is to take the enclosed lifeguard tower installation vote first with Commissioner Goldman and Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg recused. We will then welcome Commissioner Goldman back in, at which point we would do the Zone 7 street slurry seal rehabilitation project. And then, of course, Chair Pro Tem can come back in, Kellenberg can come back in, and the rest of them can be voted on.
I was going to ask a question, so I guess the answer is yes. The lifeguard towers are all of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's city limits to city limits, essentially. Yeah.
Okay, do you guys you understand that, Commissioner Kellenberg and Commissioner Goldman?
Does Commissioner Kellenberg need to leave his
Yes,
hotel?
sir.
No, he does not. Yeah, Commissioner Kellenberg, just please mute, and during the
Put your
um,
pillow over your head.
discussion, please do not say anything.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to start with project number 8, which is the enclosed lifeguard tower installation. Would anybody like to start with that discussion? And again, our role here tonight is limited to finding whether or not these particular projects are general with are in conformance with our general plan. And our general plan has a bunch of different elements that have policies and goals that we are trying to meet as a city. And so that is our role here tonight. So as was pointed out earlier, some of these projects have a number of different elements that could be cited. Some of them have some from each of either the land use element, transportation element, open space element, and safety element. Some of them are just have one of those references, but again, that's our role here tonight. So anybody like to start regarding whether or not they find the enclosed lifeguard tower installations to be consistent with our general plan?
I find them to be consistent with our general plan.
Well, I had a statement that just sort of covered all these things. So
Exactly.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to at least do a couple of these separately, and then we can kind of, if we want to,
okay,
cover them
well, I'll
all
concur
broadly.
with my fellow Commissioner Whiten that
And I do as well. So I guess we'll take an individual vote on this particular item. May I have roll call,
I got-
please?
Chair, we would need a motion in a second from
Oh, may I have a motion to approve
the.
project number 8?
so moved.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Whiten,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Sadler.
Yes. So that passes 3 with 2 commissioners recusing themselves. Now Commissioner Goldman may return. All right, but Commissioner Kellenberg will not be participating in project number 18, which is Zone 7 Street Slurry Seal and Rehabilitation. Any commissioner discussion on that? Do we find that to be consistent with the general plan? And if so, would somebody like to make a motion to that effect?
I move that it meets the general plan consistency.
Is there a second?
Next.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Goldman,
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Sadler.
Yes, that motion passes 4 with 1 recusal from Commissioner Kellenberg. Okay, Commissioner Kellenberg, you may rejoin us. Okay. Now we may more generally discuss all the remaining project numbers and items. Any discussion on this? Would somebody like to find? I personally have read through, I think the staff report was helpful in going through all the particular elements of our general plan and creating a matrix which showed, as I said earlier, they meet at least one or more of the goals and policies from these particular elements of our general plan. And I find them to be consistent. Does anybody else agree with that?
I also find them to be consistent.
Yeah, so having read through the land use element, transportation circulation, growth management element, the open space and conservation element, and finally the safety element as they pertain to capital improvement program, I can make the findings for general plan consistency and also that this is a planning study, so it is exempt under CEQA 15262.
Well said. Do you have anything to add, Commissioner Goldman? Would you like to make a motion, Commissioner Dubin?
I'd like to move that everything stated in all the projects in the capital improvement program are consistent with the general plan and exempt from CEQA.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Goldman,
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg,
Yes.
Chair Sadler.
Yes. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pierre. Thanks, Tom. Okay.
By the way,
before-
Tom, Main Beach looks really good. Yeah. Yeah, it's all really nice.
Beaches are great.
Yeah. Yeah, great job.
Okay, we'll give everybody a moment to switch over before our next item. And Anthony, if you would like to introduce us to our new associate planner.
Yes, happy to do so, Chair Sadler. This evening, it's my pleasure to introduce the Planning Commission and the public to one of our wonderful new associate planners. His name is Matt Kilroy. He's been with us for just a few short months. He's a great addition to the team and happy to be featuring him here this evening to be presenting item 5.2 on this agenda. With that, I'll turn it over to Matt for the presentation.
Thanks, Anthony, and welcome, Matt. Good to have you, and good luck.
Good evening, Chair and Planning Commission. Thank you for welcoming me. Tonight, I will be discussing item 5.2, which is a request for a sign permit for Board and Brew located at 188 South Coast Highway. The proposed site is located within the Visitor Commercial District of the Downtown Specific Plan area. The site is improved with a single-story multi-tenant commercial building with a street frontage along South Coast Highway and Ocean Avenue. Board and Brew has committed to incorporating interior finishes, design elements, and signage that are visually distinct from other Board and Brew locations. Based on this commitment, the city has determined that the establishment does not meet the criteria for formula-based business. As a result, a CUP was not required and a business license was issued. The applicant is now requesting approval to install 1 wall sign and 2 suspended signs. The proposed non-illuminated wall sign features an open back pan face design with internally framed aluminum lettering. The sign will display the message Board and Brew specialty sandwiches since 1979 and is proposed to be installed above the business entrance, oriented toward northbound South Coast Highway traffic. The wall sign will measure 42 inches in height and span 70.75 inches in width with a total sign area of 15 square feet. It will feature flat-cut aluminum lettering and existing gooseneck lamp installed by prior tenant Wild Taco will remain over the proposed wall sign location to allow for the continued sign visibility after dusk. The proposed double-sided suspended signs will be installed to the northwest and southeast of the suite entrance, hanging from the existing canopy. The suspended signs will be fabricated from 2-inch thick painted aluminum, and similar to the wall sign, they include 4 lines of text surrounding the Board and Brew logo. Each circular sign will measure 17 inches in height and 21.5 inches in width, resulting in a sign area of approximately 1.3 square feet per sign face. The proposed signs will maintain a clearance of 7.5 feet from the bottom edge of the sign to the sidewalk surface, thereby complying with a minimum required 7-foot clearance. Overall, staff has found the proposed sign permit application to be consistent with the Laguna Beach Municipal Code, downtown specific plan, and all required findings, and recommends the Planning Commission by motion adopt the attached resolution approving the sign permit and finding said action exempt from CEQA. Staff, as well as the applicant Trevor Elkins of Sunset Signs and Printing Incorporated, are available to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Matt. I guess before we start, are there any commissioner disclosures on this item? Seeing none, Commissioner Kellenberg?
No.
No disclosures? Okay, me either. I guess I'll start with a quick question, and it's just when it first couple sentences where it's outlining the proposed project in the staff report, it's saying, it says no sign lighting is proposed. Shouldn't that have better been said, like no new sign lighting is proposed? I mean, isn't the existing the gooseneck light would typically be considered a sign light, wouldn't it?
It's not an internally illuminated sign, but the light will provide light onto the sign, but we wouldn't count it as a lit illuminated sign.
Yes, but to your point, Chair, you are technically correct. That would have been a more direct, specific way of addressing the existing conditions which are proposed to remain. There is exterior building lighting that will remain and will serve to illuminate the proposed signage.
Okay, and is a representative from Board and Brew here tonight, or a representative from the sign company in case we have any questions? then if you could come forward and sit here at the table, just in case we have any questions for you. And there's that mic, I think there's a little button on there you have to push before, you'll see a green button, that means it's on. Thank you. If you could just give us your name for the record.
I have a couple of questions for staff.
Okay. What was your name again? Okay, thank you. And questions for staff, go ahead,
Yeah.
Commissioner Dubin.
Just curious, how many other locations does this restaurant have?
Board and Brew has about 30 or so locations in California and Arizona.
Okay. And the non-formula based business determination was based on what analysis?
Yeah. So while the locations feature like a bold teal and pink color scheme, this location will exhibit a cleaner, more modern, all-white interior. So the interior improvements, they're not in line with other formula-based businesses as Board and Brews. So it'll be more unique to Laguna Board and Brew.
I know we're here just for the sign permit, but I know we went through these kind of things before, and we're pretty strict in terms of not only the visual appearance, but the menu as well, in terms of trying to eliminate it from being a formula-based business. So I'm just curious, that's why I asked the question about how many locations there were and how you ended up making that determination. Anthony?
Yes, thanks. And I would concur with what our associate planner had mentioned. I can elaborate further, as I was the staff person that made the decision that what was being proposed for this location is not considered a formula-based business. The way that term is defined in the downtown specific plan, just to briefly summarize, is that the business, which has multiple locations, is using a formulaic or mass marketing approach to identify said business, which formula-based business is essentially the city's term for a chain-based business. The applicant here proposed a custom design for their Laguna Beach location as part of just the initial conversation before pursuing any type of a planning application with the city. They were willing to commit to differentiating the interior and exterior presentation for their Laguna Beach location. As Matt had mentioned, there are some design features of their existing locations that are very commonplace at most, if not all, of their existing locations. And what was proposed for Laguna Beach was distinct from what was done at the other locations. With the last downtown specific plan update, there was a change in the findings for our formula-based business to move away from the emphasis on both design presentation and the retail or food products, and focusing the decision on really the appearance of the business. And so we did not have a conversation with this applicant as to whether or not they would differentiate their menu from the other locations. The decision was predicated on their commitment to do a unique design for Laguna Beach.
Okay. Thanks, Anthony. I just, one more quick question. If staff believes that the signs meet the criteria for wall and suspended signage, the question is, then why couldn't this sign application be handled administratively?
Yeah, so the signs do meet certain design criteria and are not eligible for administrative approval. Most importantly, for this project, the letter of the font height does exceed 8 inches, and that's why we brought it to this planning commission for approval.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, and just to follow up on what Commissioner Dubin was saying about formula-based businesses, I think it maybe at the end of this, after we get through the sign permit part, we can discuss it a little bit, because initially I was thinking along the same lines that with 30 franchise locations, this would seemingly be a formula-based business. However, on the other hand, a part of what we can discuss further is like, do we, the city's also had a reputation for being very difficult for businesses. And I believe, some effort has been made both by the Planning Commission and City Council and the city in general to maybe get away from that perception and where we can. So, I was initially thinking they were along the same lines, but I kind of came to the conclusion that I was okay with the decision-making that staff made on this. But again, we can discuss that further. But any questions for, Commissioner Goldman?
I have a question, and Matt, I'm going to direct this at Anthony, given longer tenure in the city. It's not a question related to sign. I'm curious, because this is a great location, and Wild Taco failed. Why will this succeed? What's kind of, as you looked at this as a potential use, what were your thinkings on how is this going to make it when Wild Taco, which I thought was very nice, didn't? Is it the price point?
I'll keep my response brief because I'll just remind the commission very respectfully that the purpose of tonight's hearing is to
Understood,
deliberate
but
and sign
But
application.
yeah,
But it's a question to answer your question of curiosity briefly. One thing I noted was that this operator has a more affordable price point than a lot of other restaurants in the downtown area, and I think that's going to potentially lead to success.
And ultimately, it's not staff's position to be picking winners and losers out of businesses. Somebody can come in with the most outrageously expensive food option in the world, and the city's got to take the application, and if they wanted to go before a public hearing, they get to. Okay.
That is correct, Chair. Once again, I defer to Planning Manager Vieira. He, for curiosity, perfect, totally fine. But in none of his review or any of the city's planning criteria is a viability or business plan analysis component.
And I have a second question, which is easier. And Matt, when do they anticipate opening? Because I noticed on their website, they said coming soon to Laguna without a date.
Yeah, so on May 1st, 2025, they have pulled building permits for the tenant improvements, and as of right now, it hasn't been finalized. So it's unclear of when they're going to open.
I think we may have heard sometime this summer is what they're anticipating.
Yeah, I think they'd want to rush for that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Kellenberg, any questions of staff or the applicant?
Well, I'm just a little confused because on these sign things, I search the staff report for the magic sentence that this sign application meets the signage design criteria, and I found that, and so I wasn't going to have any questions, but I just heard that it does not meet the signage criteria, that in fact the font is oversized. So would you please clarify, does it meet the criteria or doesn't it?
We have the Planning Commission has the authority to approve fonts larger than 8 inches. However, we're required to make that determination. So if the applicant comes in with a signage that has fonts larger than 8 inches, it's going to require it to come before the Planning Commission and us to make an okay on that.
Well, I was actually asking the staff the question, and so so it does not meet the criteria as it's submitted.
I can take a stab at that answer, Commissioner. Although the application is not eligible for an administrative sign permit, because the sign does, and specifically the proposed wall sign includes letter heights exceeding 8 inches, the sign does comply with the city's municipal code requirements for signage, and no variance is being requested. So the sign is code compliant. It simply is subject to Planning Commission approval.
Okay, I think I understand.
All right, I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Whiten.
This question is actually about the sign. And in the staff report, page 8, under the first finding, signage design criteria, the proposed signs are cohesive with the existing architecture, which is fine, and the color palette of the building. How is this sign cohesive with the color palette of the building? It's set on a patterned tile. There's the gold colored roof material and brick walls. So I'm looking at yellow and kind of an electric blue and wondering how is that cohesive with the color palette of the building?
Yeah, it's a little bit bold choice for Board and Brew. However, it does fit the beach going vibe, I think, with that those fonts. And I think it does attract certain viewership to that as far as the vehicles traveling northbound on South Coast Highway.
And to just briefly add to Matt's response, which I would concur with, that finding goes on to indicate that the contrast with the building is appropriate, and that is intended to ensure essentially signage visibility.
Yeah, when I look at the actual elevation with the sign on it, the sign is circular and it feels wedged between the top of the opening of the door and the bottom of the gooseneck. Now, maybe that isn't exactly to scale, but when I look at the elevation, it just appears a little cramped. If you go to page 4, there's an illustration of that. And in going online with the Board and Brew website, they have many locations that have horizontal signs. Did the applicant consider other configurations? I guess you're the right person to ask about that.
Yeah,
A horizontal format instead of the circular.
the circular is just their standard logo, and when conceptualizing the designs, we have several that we go through and that get approved client side, and the one that's approved is the one that we go for and take to the city.
Yeah, but
So the circular one is the one that we had approved internally that we attempted to submit here.
so it's the preferred alternative.
Yes.
Yeah, but other locations have horizontal format.
There have been some before,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, all right, but that was that isn't just necessarily the standard sign. It was thought through.
Yes.
Okay.
And if I might add to that response, because I was involved with some of these preliminary discussions as part of the business license approval, in addition to our conversation about the design presentation, they wanted to commit to proposing unique signage for their Laguna Beach location. And so that's why they have this, I'll call it a medallion that's incorporated into the design, when it's more typical for them, for their wall sign specifically, to have just the Board and Brew lettering proposed.
Thank you.
I had a question regarding, and because I looked at their websites as well, too, because once it said, that they were distinguishing themselves, at least design-wise and marketing-wise from some of their other locations, and this sign does look different than the other signs I saw. The words Board and Brew themselves, that font and all that, it is their standard kind of, right? And I'm just, what is that supposed to be evoking? I mean, I see, Board and Brew, and I see these little kind of dots off on the end. Is it supposed to be like an island or something, or is it? Would you know even?
I wouldn't have an exact answer, but I would say just it looks cool, looks appealing, and just it portrays the vibe of the restaurant.
Okay. Do you know what I'm asking, Anthony, sort of? I mean, I kind of looking at it, is that supposed to be like a archipelago or something, like little islands, or I don't.
I would go with that. I couldn't personally explain the design concept.
Okay.
And Chair, if I may, it does have to do with like a beach theme. It's Board and Brew, so it's kind of a surfer Southern California font style.
Okay.
I think we're reading way too much into this.
Yeah. Okay. Any additional questions for the applicant or staff? Commissioner Kellenberg, anything else?
I have
No,
one.
I'm good.
I have one for the applicant.
Okay, yes, please go.
I know that the suspended signs are 2 inches thick, and I think staff said that they're 2-inch thick aluminum, and I know that can't be right because those things would weigh like 300 pounds a piece, so I'm assuming it's 2 inches thick, but it's hollow inside.
Yes, that's right. Each sign would only weigh about 5 or less pounds.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that 2-inch thick aluminum is kind of heavy.
Okay,
All right.
I'll open the public hearing for public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment and go to commissioner discussion. Commissioner Kellenberg, would you like to start?
Yes, I agree with Susan's, questions about kind of the size and being forced a little bit. But when I look at the previous sign from Wild Taco, it was similar in size, and the size of the font to me is not an issue, because I think my real goal here is to get this restaurant open and have it be successful. And I think having a bolder sign that has draws people in and creates a strong vibe, I think is appropriate. My only comment is that I just hope our city processing time frame does not slow this down and keep this restaurant from getting open as soon as possible. So I'm supportive.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldman.
I'm supportive of the sign as well.
Right, Commissioner Whiten.
Likewise, I agree with, I think it needs to be a little eye-catching. It certainly does that. And I just hope they're successful. Thank you.
Commissioner Dubin.
Yeah, I just, first of all, start with, I can make the CEQA exemption under class 1. My comment is, goes back to our process, I guess, a little bit. So it's about this being another case. If we update our policies and guidelines and concerning this letter height thing, because from a square footage standpoint, it met the criteria, but because the letter height was above 8 inches, it had to come before us. And I think that's something that we really need to take a look at, because I think unless a sign is required as asking for a variance, that I think all sign applications should be handled over the counter administratively. But in this case, I'm for this particular application.
Well, I agree with your comments regarding the CEQA exemption, and can make the findings for a resolution for the sign permit itself. Again, I think you may consider this kind of strain from our assigned task before us, but it is tied in, because what's happened here is a determination has been made by staff at a certain level about what can be constituted a formula-based business and how it's dealt with. And again, my feeling is, at first I was a little taken aback by it at first, and thought, well, is this a new policy? Is this the new way we're going to approach things from here on out? So I don't know if any other commissioners want to discuss that at all, but again, my feeling is that at least in this particular instance, I agree with the staff's approach to this, and don't have a problem with it. However, one could, imagine a situation in which, one of the most formula-based businesses or somebody comes into town, say McDonald's or something like that, and would staff be comfortable on assurances from McDonald's that they were going to distinguish themselves in such a way to not be considered a formula-based business? I spoke with somebody recently, just this last weekend, who said something about their being in Paris and seeing the most beautiful McDonald's they've ever seen. So I just think I like the idea of the city working to try to reduce barriers and in line with what you're saying, George, as well, about, could more things be approved administratively? So I don't know if everybody just even wants to talk about that or if we just move on.
Are we permitted to have this discussion?
I think we should be because the fact that a determination was made at staff level that really could have gone either way, and if it had gone the other way, this would require a CUP. This would have required, but it's a restaurant, that had a restaurant that was there. Wild Taco had more than one location, whether or not they were considered a formula-based business, But again, this place has many more locations than that, and
Well, I
Correct.
just,
Yeah, so if I may, obviously before you all is the sign permit. So what I would advise is that is the topic of conversation handled first. You guys can weigh in and decide that. If there is some ancillary discussion somewhat related after that,
Okay.
you guys are up here for a reason. I'm not going to say no, but what I want to be sure is that these things are
Okay.
clearly separated.
let's
Make a motion
Yeah.
and vote.
Yes, let's do that. Let's separate the items and let's make a motion. Let's vote on this and get this cleared and on its way. And then we can have a discussion if we want to.
I move that Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving sign permit 25-1085 and finding said action exempt from CEQA.
second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Goldman?
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten?
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg?
Yes.
Chair Sadler?
Yes. Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a 14-day right of appeal to the city council if anybody doesn't agree with that decision. Okay, and you're free to go.
Thank you.
And I don't.
You on the next sign.
I have a kind of a broad, maybe general question, maybe to start with, and that is, what is the state's feeling about the city legislating this issue? Is there anything we need to be aware of?
I'll let Pat chime in if he's aware of something that I may not be, but really the state's focus on preempting local regulation at the moment is predominantly on the housing side due to the state's housing crisis, the shortage of housing generally across the state. And so each year we continue to see less and less ability at the local level to regulate housing production. I haven't seen anything similar to that on the commercial side.
Is your question, what's the possibility of the state interfering if we imposed the restriction,
Well, we've
the chain restriction?
Yeah. I mean, it's partly that. I mean, in the past, we had Subway come in
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
Oh, yeah.
and we took them all the way to the mat, and they did absolutely every somersault we asked them to do, including changing their employee uniforms, including not having their yellow and whatever color that is sign. They were really put through the paces, but they stuck with it. We approved it, and then they went away. They decided it wasn't worth it. But in that case, we were really meddling in.
Right. And so my response would be, the city of Laguna Beach is not the only city that has a formula retail or formula-based business type regulation. All the ones that I'm familiar with are slightly different, for each kind of town has its own flavor. I'm not aware of any state legislation to that specific component, i.e. treating formula-based businesses different than others. Kind of the general rules of land use and planning, proportionality, nexus would still apply, such that, if it was, deemed arbitrary and capricious, or say, hey, you can only hire people that are taller than 6'6", or something like, if it's something ridiculous, yes, we would be. But these types of, as long as the conditions are geared towards the goals and policies of in this instance, the downtown specific plan, i.e. maintain Laguna's kind of unique character, don't want to have that kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong in articulating the goals as I understand them about the formula-based business, not having kind of the downtown converted into just, the McDonald's, the Subways that look exactly the same, probably safe. But so it's hard for me to say, yes, no matter what you guys do, you guys would be safe. But that's kind of my thoughts on the matter, Madam Commissioner.
Anthony, just getting back to more of the sign issue, especially in the DSB, is there ever going to be a time or a possibility that some of these restrictions that we are guided by now, like the 8-inch letter height, even though the sign complied with the square footage requirement, I just feel like, you know, if there's a way we can start to get away from some of this stuff so that these things can be done administratively, it seems like it's kind of time for that, because we're getting bogged down in things that I think can be mostly handled over the counter.
Yeah, I do appreciate that question, Commissioner. It's actually a very timely suggestion. We are currently working on the design review efficiency ordinance.
Right.
There was a joint session with the city council some time ago, a couple months ago, on that very subject. That draft ordinance didn't include any changes to the sign provisions, but we are actually intending to address that very concern in the final draft that's ultimately processed through the local adoption process. We are looking to increase the letter height threshold so that potentially more signs qualify for a staff level review and approval process. Haven't quite finalized what that threshold will be. I will say it's probably going to be minimum 12 inches eligible for staff level approval, could be a little higher. We don't want to necessarily say there are no limits to the staff level approval as long as you are not triggering a variance and complying with the code. But we are looking to provide more flexibility so that hopefully a greater percentage of signs that truly meet the needs of the businesses can go through a more streamlined review process.
All right, thanks, Anthony.
I have another question that has to do with the council. The city is going to hire a retail consultant. Has that happened? And what is that? What is the scope of that position? I mean, would that person, for example, be reviewing this application with staff?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Commissioner. I don't happen to know what the status is of bringing an economic development consultant on board. At this time, we do have what I'll call an economic development team that's assisting the business community. And this is part of a city council directive to help promote local commerce, encourage businesses to do some improvements, to renovate, clean up their storefronts, encourage tenants to move into some of our vacancies in the downtown and other commercial districts. I know that there has been talk about bringing in outside help to perhaps assist with some of those efforts. I don't happen to know what the status of that is today.
Thank you.
I can't help myself make a comment with regard to the formula-based business. It's interesting determining what's a formula-based business and what's not. And I think in this case, the subjectivity is probably around the number of units that they have. Because if you look at the menus are all the same, and the design is pretty consistent across the different properties and the signs. But I think where I'm comfortable that this doesn't get tripped up in the formula-based business. It's like a regional business. It's not a national roll it out all over the country. We've got other ones, Scoops, I guess it's called, the soft ice cream. They have one or two other locations. I guess what I'm saying is we try to determine formula-based business. Subway and it's clearly one because they've got a gazillion different things. But here, I think there's some flexibility because there's just not as many units.
But on the other hand, Bitter Buzz doesn't even have half. It's also a regional business, but it doesn't have 30 units.
Yeah.
I guess what I was looking for, kind of from feedback from the commissioners, whether or not we as a commission feel comfortable with staff having the flexibility to be making this sort of judgment call. And I personally am.
I am too.
And so I just wanted to see if anybody else strongly felt otherwise. Commissioner Kellenberg?
Oh, I agree. I think this one is on the line. It's kind of on the border. I do think that, given city policy, that we should have the ability to weigh in on probably something similar to this, with this number of, if this particular purveyor had 30, but none of them were in the region, to me, that would be more supportive. If they are in the region, then to me, it becomes more of a discussion that we should be a part of. That's my thought.
Well, they are in the region, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Okay, any other further discussion? All right. Okay, let's move along. We are done with that item, so we'll move on to our final item of the evening, which is this regular business, item 5.3. And this is a design review item. And who will be presenting that for us tonight? Okay, Sarah? First time we've had a staff report from
Yeah.
that side of the dais.
Are we comfortable with this?
Yes, we are.
Patrick, weigh in.
Patrick?
Thank you, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Item 5.3 is request for design review for the Park Monaco building. The subject property is located in South Laguna at 32392 Coast Highway within the local business professional zone in the Three Arch Bay commercial area. The site is developed with a 3-story multi-tenant professional office building with a surface parking lot and a lower level parking garage. The existing building was originally approved under county jurisdiction in 1984 and has not had any significant exterior alterations in the last 13 years that required Planning Commission design review. The existing building consists of a light tan wood siding and darker tan trim and stucco. The proposed project consists of modifying the exterior paint colors to a soft green for the wood siding, a medium green for the stucco areas along the lower level and wood trim throughout, and a darker green for the middle trim and the handrails, following a similar pattern to what exists today. After staff conducted a site visit with the paint swatches on the facade, it was noted that the lighter green color appears to be less saturated than what is shown in the rendering. Since the publication of the staff report, staff received one public correspondence from a tenant of the building in opposition to the proposed color scheme. Staff has concluded that the proposed color scheme will overall enhance the appearance of the building and has found the color scheme to be consistent with the design review criteria and recommends that the Planning Commission by motion adopt the attached resolution approving design review and finding said action exempt from CEQA.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any commissioner disclosures on this item? Commissioner Kellenberg?
No.
Okay. Any questions of staff at this point? Commissioner Kellenberg?
Not really. I would just, are there color samples that are being circulated to the commission? Because I find the actual graphics in the staff report difficult to understand. The idea that, green is hard to really perceive in the colors represented in the staff report. So I'm just hoping that there's something that's better representation of the colors that the council is able to review in person.
I don't know if there are any actual samples here tonight. However, there were large swatches. Oh, here, when there's a photo being shown right now where some relatively large swatches of the proposed colors were provided on the side of the building near the front entrance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, it makes a very big difference to go out and look at those colors. Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. It's not the same colors that are depicted in the staff report. I mean,
Yeah,
by virtue of the digital representation.
that light green is almost it's got a lot of blue in it.
See,
It's not even that. It's pretty pale. I mean,
Questions?
Yeah, I have a question for staff.
You can ask if it's pale.
I had this is part comment, part question, but I had a pretty lengthy conversation with our mayor a couple of weeks ago in relationship to people painting their buildings. And my question is, in the future, is something like this something that can be done again administratively? I mean, we're talking so much about streamlining processes. You know, it seems like something like this might be able to be handled administratively. Any thoughts? Probably Anthony.
Yes, I can address that question. Thank you. Subject to ultimately city council approval, but it is going to be recommended by city staff as part of the design review efficiency ordinance to allow for cosmetic improvements involving color changes to building exteriors, whether residential or commercial, that they be exempted from design review. Today, generally, residential color changes are exempt from design review.
Okay. Thanks,
A
Matt.
full range of color, or will the range of color be defined? So for example, I could paint my house orange.
Yes. No, it'll be the Irvine Company's 5 shades of beige.
Do you like beige? What color of beige do you want?
But so there'll be guidelines established, or will it be open?
Staff is not intending to propose guidelines. Guidelines maybe could be adopted separately at a later date if that is the council's direction ultimately, but as part of the ordinance itself, staff was not intending to establish color guidelines. And that is similar to what we do with residential today, unless there was a condition of approval that dictated certain colors to mitigate something about the project in order to find that the project conforms to the design review criteria. There is a lot of flexibility to repaint a single family home, for example, in any colors that the homeowner wishes, and there's no city discretion on those colors.
Great, thank you. If there are seeing no further questions to the applicant, you could please give us your name and tell us about your project.
Let's see. Am I live? There you go. I represent the owner on this, and just to go back to what, first of all, we agree with staff's report and the conditions. We did take a few minutes and look at other colors, and if you wanted to go back to the very first picture that was put up there, anytime you drive by this building, you'll see that it's in a unique area where there's no structure to the left for almost a football field, and to the right, there's a vacant lot. But if you look beyond, you'll see the green hillside that has different palettes of green, and it's quite obvious. So I think that going in this direction kind of blends with the hillside. It's not obnoxious, and it was done in good taste. So that's all I have to say. And lastly, as far as the glazing that's on there, you know, we're working with an 80s retro design. So, you know, I think that that's something that there's something we can do without spending a ton of money. So it enhances the building the best reasonable way. And if there's any need to address the dissenting opinion, I'd like to comment later on that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant at this point?
I've got a quick one. The colors that are actually the samples that are on the building and the samples that are in the staff report, the lightest color, the number 1 color,
That
which
looks
is
terrible.
it seems quite light. Like, you know, is that what you intended? Because in the staff report, it's got a more subtle transition to the other 2 colors. This one seems like it's really bright, and then all of a sudden you're jumping value-wise, you know, way down the scale for the other 2. Is there any?
I think on the building, it looked different. So I think, again, the representation on the building and even on that graphics looks better in person. I do see where you're saying that number 1 and number 2 has a little bit of a discrepancy, wider distance, I should say, right?
Yeah, it's quite a bit, actually. I mean, I like what you're doing. I just, when I saw the samples in the staff report, I thought, yeah, that's appropriate.
Yeah.
When I see this, that the very lightest shade kind of bumps me a little bit.
I agree with you on that.
Is there any possibility of
Yeah,
going a
yeah,
couple
we-
value?
Yeah, it's a couple values, darker, sure.
Okay,
That's reasonable.
thank you.
I have a question about the signage. You're removing the signs and then replacing them where they are, the same signs on the building?
Oh, I wasn't aware. I would assume it's going to be done properly. Like,
Yeah,
if that's
okay,
needed,
there's not going to
sure.
be any change to the
No,
signage? Okay,
No, that wasn't part of any application.
all right. And just from what you know, is the owner intending to upgrade the landscape?
We haven't talked about it, but she's prideful of her properties and maintains them and constantly improves them. So
Well, it looks like it could use a little bit of an upgrade, certainly on the street,
sure.
from the street side. It's not a part of this application, but
Oh, glad to make it look better.
yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Goldman, Commissioner Kellenberg, any questions?
No, thank you.
All right. Okay, I'll open it to any members of the public who wish to speak on this item. Please come forward. You'll have 3 minutes. If you'll print your name on the list after you're done speaking, some lights will come on. A yellow light will mean you have 30 seconds left. When a red light goes, that means your time's up. But yep, and please give us your name. Oh,
Am I
Sarah.
waiting for this to go?
Yeah. There you go.
Hi, I'm Nicole Smith. I am the owner of Hebe Skin Health. We are a luxury med spa here in South Laguna, as well as tenants at 1141 Coast View Drive. I'm here with my family. We have been at this location for 2+ years, as well as we have a location in Claremont, California, that has been there for almost 10 years. And I'm opposing the color green for this building. When we leased this building, we leased it, signing a 5-year lease with the option to extend the lease for an additional 5 years. So we do plan to be at this location for 10 years or more, hopefully. So with this intention of being there long-term, and when we signed the lease, we expected the building to stay a neutral color. It goes with our branding. Our branding is black and white. This is Hebe Skin Health. We are a luxury skincare facility that we have patients that walk into clinic there. Most of the tenants in this building are more like real estate people who don't have actual customers walking into the building. So we are looking for something to stay on brand with our company, which is more luxury. So we would like it to either stay the tones of a cream or neutral color, because it not only goes with our brand, but also with the coastal look of Dana Point, as well as CDM. And we feel like green is just outdated. I wanted to bring up that there is stucco on the building. And aesthetically, stucco does not look good painted green. It looks outdated. We already have one vacancy in that building that's been vacant for quite a while. And you guys had mentioned that you feel strongly about keeping business in Laguna Beach. And if we paint the building green, I don't think someone will lease that vacancy. If I would have seen that building green, I don't think that I would have leased it in the beginning. So I'm opposing the green and requesting that the building stay tan or some type of neutral color that goes with the beach aesthetic.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for them? Okay. Any other members of the public who wish to speak on this? Oh, oops, sorry.
Hello, Chair and Planning Commission. My name is Clayton Smith. I am the son of owner Nicole Smith of Hebe Skin Health, and also a resident of Laguna Beach. And I'm also opposing the color change as well. The reason I'm opposing the color change, as you guys mentioned, those shades of green do blend in with the hillside. And commonly throughout Laguna Beach, we have driven around the city, and more than recently have taken looks at the various buildings throughout Laguna and found that there are very few green buildings. The majority of buildings in Laguna are a light tan, white, browns. So we find it hard to believe that this change will add any significant benefit to the visual appeal of Laguna Beach. And then along with that, in the paperwork that I sent into Sarah, the proposed green color, whether it's a lighter shade or a darker shade, again, blends in with that hillside. And some of you might be familiar with Go Away Green, which Disneyland uses to hide, and along with the city, uses to hide things like trash cans and electrical boxes, hidden doorways. And they do so with hopes to shy people away from looking at these areas. So when driving on PCH, moving south, looking at our building, I believe those looking at the building are, number one, either going to hardly recognize the building because, again, it blends in with that hillside as the architect stated, and or they are going to think it's off from the rest of the city. For what reason, I couldn't tell you, but again, it does not fit the norm of Laguna Beach. And other than that, I think that's about it. Yeah, just the most common colors found throughout the city that add to the visual appeal. I mean, similar to the building we're standing in now. Again, it's just hard to believe that a color change of this sort is going to add to any visual appeal of Laguna. And then, obviously, as a tenant in the building, we feel strongly that this color change will not benefit us whatsoever.
Great, thank you very much. And if you could print your name on that little list that's on the table behind you there. Great. Are there any other speakers who wish to speak on this item? Okay, see none, I'll go back to the applicant if you'd like to add anything or respond to.
Well, this is one person in the building. I've had a couple of phone calls from neighbors liking the colors. So you can't make everybody happy, but I think that it's a good looking color, and I think that there might be some secondary bad blood between this tenant and the owner of the building historically. I was forwarded an email here with 30 emails going back and forth on not good conduct from both the landlord and the tenant, and so I think there might be a little bit of a tainted view on this. And even looking at the letter, and I only had a few minutes to look at it, it's written in the tone as they're representing the building. It's just one tenant. Other people liked it. So there you go. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I'll close the public hearing and go to commissioner discussion. Anybody in particular like to begin?
Okay, I guess
Commissioner Dubin.
I appreciate tenants' comments. Of course, it's a kind of a little bit of a rock and a hard place situation. My comment on the colors themselves, like I say in the staff report, I thought they seemed pretty harmonious. When I see the actual samples on the building, I feel like the light color is too much contrast to everything else. My other comment is, in terms of, fitting Laguna Beach. Laguna Beach is not a planned community. We're not Irvine where, there's, as we were talking about earlier, there are limited numbers of color you can even use on houses or commercial buildings there. So I think that, if this is the preference of of ownership, as long as it wasn't, fuchsia or black or something like that, it's sort of at their discretion to be able to choose a color palette that they think is appropriate for the building. I would say that I would have a problem approving it unless we were willing to take that number one color down a couple of values. But this is a situation where there are property rights for ownership, and I do understand tenants having differences of opinions on things like this, but again, we don't live in a planned community. Variety is sort of the spice of life here. So I would be willing to approve this color scheme with the condition that the number one color be toned down.
Tone down meaning lighter?
Toned down.
Darker. Okay. Okay.
Otherwise,
Commissioner Whiten.
I can't really add to what Commissioner Dubin said. I agree with all of his comments. And just as a footnote, things, if a tenant really has a specific need for branding purposes to control the color of the building, that should be written into the lease. Otherwise, there really isn't any recourse, unfortunately. I mean, this is the recourse. This is a court of public opinion. But I think the comment that this is an eclectic community, this building I would put in that category of being eclectic, isn't typical of what you find in Laguna Beach. So I really, I can't add anything more. I agree that the light color needs to be toned down. And it does relate to the context.
Yeah.
Commissioner Goldman.
Yeah, I don't have much to add on that. What I will add, South Laguna and particularly that location, it's somewhat isolated from the rest of Laguna. And I think, and you had made the point with this building in particular, it's almost on a little bit of an island of itself. So it doesn't bother me that it's not a color that's more typical of what you might see, in the HIP district or anywhere else where buildings are more contiguous. So I'm fine with as well. I agree a little bit on your comment of getting a little less contrast, and so that all three of them kind of work together. I'm supportive as well. Thank you,
Commissioner Kellenberg.
Well, I've been out of town. I haven't been able to look at the colors in real time, so I'm going to defer to my fellow commissioners to make comments and have recommendations in terms of the tonality regarding what we just heard in terms of one of the tenants. I have to go with the building owner as having preference in terms of the selection of how they want to deal with their building in this case. So for those reasons, I'm supportive of the application.
Thank you. I am as well. On these type of applications tend to give a lot of deference to the building owner's desires. And unless what they're proposing is particularly outrageous or inappropriate, I'm going to, allow them wide latitude. I'm okay with the color scheme as proposed and as put on the building. However, if there is consensus to change the shade of number one to a darker shade, I'm okay with that. And I think there's some legitimacy to some more of what the members of the public said. There are cases where we certainly want things to disappear and blend. We recently had the water tower replacement that happened towards South Laguna, where that was ultimately painted, I believe, a dark green to try to make it blend more with the hillside. When you're making the same claim with a building, I guess the question then is, what are you trying to make your building disappear, or are you trying to make your building more visible? But again, I'm willing to defer to the building's owner's wishes there. So is there consensus among the Planning Commission that the dominant shade number one should be darker than what's currently proposed?
I feel that way, yes.
And should we have it reviewed by staff?
Chair, if I may, the condition of approval may read something to the effect of color number one as identified in the approved plans and proposed to be applied to the wood siding in pop-outs shall be darkened in value. Color selections shall be subject to review and approval by city staff.
Is there, George, is there a standard terminology of levels of?
Well, it's value, like
So value is,
10 being white and 0 being black, so everything in between.
and so what would this be? Would this be like a 2 or a 3?
Well, what's proposed, I think, is getting close to like 8 or 9 on the value scale. So it needs to be down at 6 or 7.
It goes in reverse.
Yeah.
Okay, the condition as proposed sounds adequate to me. Does that sound good to everybody else?
Yes.
Okay, will somebody make a motion?
I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving design review 25-0903 and finding said action exempt from CEQA, inclusive of the condition that staff has recommended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Plenty.
Sarah, you can pick whoever was first on that.
Commissioner Goldman,
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg,
Yes.
Chair Sadler.
Yes. Okay, motion passes unanimously. There is a 14-day right of appeal to the city council if you don't agree with that decision. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that ends our public hearings for the evening, and we will move on to other business.
There is no other business, Chair.
Okay, are there any committee, commissioners, or staff reports? Anything any commissioner would like to add at this point?
I don't think we're ready for process updates necessarily. Is that correct? I mean, I know we've kind of been talking about it during this meeting, but
Not quite yet, but we will have that follow-up conversation with the
Okay.
commission.
thank you.
Okay, will somebody make a motion to adjourn to our next regularly scheduled meeting?
When is that?
June
Oh, there it
18th,
is.
2025.
Oh, and before we do that, just to remind commissioners that on the upcoming city council meeting, there will be appointments to the planning commission. So for those of us who have applied, we need to be there.
I'm rooting for you.
Yeah.
Okay, now for the motion for adjournment.
Move adjournment of the Planning Commission to our next regularly scheduled meeting on June 18th at 6 o'clock. June 18th, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Goldman, Commissioner Whiten,
Yes.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Kellenberg,
Yes.
Chair Sadler.
Yes. We are officially adjourned. Thank you.